Hey guys, guess what? It's Mrs. Sheba. I started recording and I accidentally hit the wrong button, so I'm doing a do-over. So good morning. It is Friday, March 20th, and guess what that means? It is the first day of spring. So what will you do today to enjoy the first day of spring? And just like we did at school, at home, I planted maybe 120 tulip bulbs. So I'm going to go for a walk in my yard and check for my tulips to see. I know some of them are starting to peak up. And then I'm going to go for a walk. And as I look outside right now, it's kind of doing a little rain, snow thing right now. So I might wait a little bit before I do that. And I'm also going to open up our book and give us a word for the day. And our word for today is going to be seek peace. So, how will you seek peace today on this first day of spring, enjoying the weather that's out there, and finding the beauty and the peace? So, and I had already started to read Aoki, so I'm going to redo it again. Hopefully I won't hit the wrong button. So, Aoki chapter 6, The Secret Door. Leaving Pio's room that night for the first time since they entered it, Kaya and Aoki found the halls of the sanctum to be pitch black, without a single light to guide them. The silence was extreme, making the creaking of the door they closed and locked behind them sound like an avalanche. Pio gently activated his own bioluminescence, which then reflected off of discs of mother of pearl inlaid in the ceiling, illuminating the path as they journeyed down the many corridors. Apparently, this was the Medusa's form of lighting. Finally, they reached a small door that led to the courtyard outside, where they ducked behind potted plants and stone statues until they arrived beneath the highest window of the sanctum. "Okay, Aoki," said Pio. "That's LaDonna Pioma's room. The icon will be in the shape of two shells fanning open like wings, and be found on a small desk near the door. Before you enter, be sure to confirm that LaDonna Pioma is, in fact, asleep. Then do whatever you can to get that icon out without being noticed." And for some of you who are watching, who don't know, there are no pictures in this book. My sister watched my video the other day and she said, "Show us the pictures." But guess what? There are no pictures. So I can't show you any pictures. I can just show you again this sweet little one on the cover. That jellyfish-like body, right? Isn't she cute? Okay, so remember, no pictures. Okay. Aoki was terrified, understanding fully that if caught, the wrath of the royals would most likely cost him his life. "Here it goes," whispered Aoki to himself. He then connected with this new surplus of aquatic spores he felt within him and the moisture in the air, and began to grow a thick vine up the side of the wall while Kaya and Pio kept lookout. As the vine grew, he began to climb, snaking between the windows on the way where he saw guards patrolling over Medusa, asleep in their beds, and empty rooms full of artwork in various precious decor, all illuminated by the moonlight brought in by the oculus. At last he reached the grand arched window fit for a royal, open to the air as all the windows were. Ever so slowly and carefully he peeked his eyes over the windowsill. The room, black as ink, with only slivered outlines of objects made clear by the light of the moon. As his eyes adjusted, Aoki could see the large decorative pool in which LaDonna Pioma slept, the air still as forest in winter. The walls were painted rose and accented with gold feathers, depicted softly drifting down to the floor. The room had many ornate pieces of furniture, also all in gold. And there in the corner was a small desk, whispering with a glint of the icon, just as Pio had described. Seeking his hand onto the inner wall around the edge of the window, Aoki began to grow thin, brown branching ivy that coated the walls like a spider web until it reached the icon on the table. Slowly and with precision, Aoki extended a vine to wrap around the icon in preparation to bring it towards him, all while watching intensely the slowly fluttering gills of Ladana Puma sleeping inches away. Is he going to get caught? I don't know. What do you think? But as he drew the icon to the edge of the table, he completely underestimated its weight and the vine broke, leaving the icon to tumble on the floor with a loud thud. How many of you have a little cough? I'm going to get my water. Bubbles stirred within the bed of the Ladana Puma, and to Aoki's terror, suddenly she sat up in the water, her long bell coating her body as if she were a ghostly apparition. Quickly, Aoki ducked back down outside the window, holding his breath in preparation for the awful voice of the royal calling out for the guards. But silence continued. Tapping into the spores of the vines he spread across the walls of the room, he was able to see that the Ladana Puma remained upright in her bed. But with her layer of skin draping over her face, it was impossible to tell whether her eyes were open or closed. Before long, she sunk back down into the water, her bell lifting slightly from her body as she submerged herself once more. After waiting for what felt like an hour, but was actually only a few minutes, Aoki finally mustered the courage to risk reaching the vines again towards the icon. This time he wound their grip tighter and many times around before slowly passing the icon along the vines and to the windowsill. Once it was in his hands, he was able to let go of all the tension in his body with a sigh of relief. Before dissolving the ivy, he creaked back into spores. Aoki then allowed the vine he climbed to detach from the exterior wall and lowered him back down to Pio and Kaya in the courtyard below. "Is everything all right?" asked Kaya. "Did you get the icon?" "I got it," whispered Aoki with a grin. "Well done," said Pio. "Now let's get out of here." Finding their way through the walls, icon in hand, at last they reached the inner sanctum where Pio grabbed the last two icons from their altar on either side of the cathedral. One was a carving of an octopus with intertwining pluming feathers for tentacles, while the other was a braided nest of jellyfish tendrils surrounding an egg. All three of the icons depicted the Medusa's religion's sacred goal of transition from sea to sky. Bringing the icons to the circular coral door behind the main altar, one by one they placed them into their reliefs where they fit like three-dimensional puzzles. The pressure plates were relieved by the grooves of the icons, and the door slowly sunk into the floor below, breaking the dead silence of the sanctum with the sound of the stone grinding against stone. But to their dismay, another door awaited them behind this one. It was a Nymphia door, meaning it could only be opened by emotional compulsion. One of them grasped as they realized a Medusa was trapped within, their curving spine and face with sunken eyes bulging out from the surface of the door. Pio took a step back in shock and scanned the scene with his eyes, feeling an emotional wave of pain move over him. Finally, he spoke in disbelief. Nymphia will sometimes fuse with or adapt parts of whatever they eat if their prey is too large for digestion, meaning this Nymphia has eaten, or rather, has been fed, a Medusa. "But why?" asked Kaya, bringing her hand to her mouth with her mouth in horror. "I have no idea," said Pio. Perhaps they were someone the royals wanted silenced. It certainly adds complexity to the door as well. The more advanced locks have a stroke order required in order to relax the nymphia. Without knowing which nerves to stroke and in what order, we won't be able to get past. And unfortunately, the nervous system of the deceased is intermeshed with that of the nymphia. Everyone felt discouraged, like their plan had suddenly slipped like sand through their fingers. But then Aoki noticed a carved writing that arched over the circular doorframe. "Does this have anything to do with it?" he asked, pointing at the etched words. "The putrid scent of the sea will one day roll from thee, off of oil-coated feather, undone all knots of tether." What does that mean? I don't know. Let's find out. "That's a verse from our sacred text," explained Pio. "Page 232. What if we had the book that we could find page 232? What would it tell us? "I've heard it so many times holding up the book for royals during sermons and turning the pages. I wonder," he said, tapping his chin with his index finger. He then retrieved from the altar the sacred text encrusted with shells and the bones of birds and began searching for page 32. Ah, here it is. There, within the seam of the book on page 232 was an old scrap of paper. Turning it over, Pio found something faintly handwritten and read aloud. Vegas 1, Oculomotor 2, Obturator 3. "This must be it," he exclaimed in a whisper. Immediately, Pio went to work on the door, explaining as he went. "You see, these nerves refer to Medusa anatomy, not nymphia. And so, if I relax this vagus nerve first as instructed," he then sent out calming waves of energy from his fingertips as he ran them down the partial throat and front of the spine of the pieces of the Medusa. "Oculomotor," he said underneath his breath, moving now to the area of his eye socket. And then "Obturator 3, tracing now the victim's inner thigh." Just as he finished, the nymphia softened, separating down the middle along the edge of the trapped Medusa, folding open the sides of the door. An ominous, dark cabin now lay before them. "Brilliant," said Aoki. "Come now, make haste," said Pio, ignoring the compliment. "Surely it won't be long before they find out what we've been up to. Pray we aren't fed to the doors ourselves." And so they ventured in, leaving the haunting arches and dome of the sanctum that seemed to watch them in silent judgment, certain to betray them if they could only speak. Dun, 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 dun. Cliffhanger. Chapter 6 that was. So next time I read chapter 7, let me see how many chapters there are in this book. I think we go up to... Oh, there's a picture coming up. Oh, I can't show it to you though. In chapter 8, there's a picture in the book. Chapter 7 is a short one, so maybe I will read that maybe tomorrow. So that is what I know. Rocking in my chair. Do y'all have rocking chairs? So I send you off with a great big hug of love. Make it a great day. Cook something. Help mom and dad around the house. Do your chores. It is part of homework. How can you be helpful around the house? How can you be of service of good? How can you even surprise mom and dad and do something that you might not have been asked to do? Keep your bedrooms clean. Help do laundry. Do the dishes. Clean up after yourself. I'm trying to do that in my own house and have my boys do the same. So get outside for a walk today. Go have fun. Do something creative. And I want to report on Monday of what you've been finding in your yard. So if you found any new treasures that are popping up, maybe some crocus, maybe some daffodils, tulips. How many of you can find moss or some lichen in your own yard? So have a great day. I miss you. I am looking forward to talking and chatting, and I'm here for you if you need me. Have a great day. See you later.